And understand that as humans, you are exactly that, and there will be those gaps, but the power of your mindset, your perception, your thoughts, your words, and how they really do impact your behaviors and your actions. And you talk about the neural linguistics program, and then also how you create the concept of neural, and talk to the neural creatives program. Neural creative programming specifically, how is that different from neural linguistics programming?
So, and it's a great question. Neural linguistics programming uses basically, it looks at how we filter information. For example, the first thing that we do is we distort things. The things that we see around us, we distort them and make them into something that we're more comfortable with, something that we're more common with, because we don't want to, our brain doesn't have the ability to process in detail every piece of stimuli or information that we get. It can only focus in on certain areas, and therefore the other areas we try to accommodate them by making them something that we're comfortable with, something that's common to us, so we don't have to even pay attention to them. So that's one part. It's called distortion. There's another part called deletion, that we don't even pay attention to those things that are occurring around us anyway. We completely delete them out because it's an efficiency mechanism. Our brain does this automatically, again, because it can only process a certain amount of information. Visually, this is where most of our brain is processing the information. We're not really having to pay much into the auditorial side unless there's sounds that we're trying to hear. We filter out the dog, we filter out maybe anything else that's going on in the room. But again, we focus on certain areas. Now, the other areas is called generalization. Generalization, you can see when you, for example, approach a door. You've seen a door 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times before in your life, and therefore you don't even have to really think about what a door is. You know there's going to be a knob there. You know that if you turn that knob, if the door is going to open, if the door is unlocked. But it's a generalization technique where we don't have to process and continually think about these things. With neural creative programming, we filter less. We consciously work to filter less information so that we're generalizing less. We're seeing things and we're taking in the atypical that a person would normally walk past and pay no attention to. We're paying attention to those things. We're taking note of it. We're taking note of the operations, how it's working, what it's used for, what was an intention, how maybe it's powered, depending on what you're looking at, that the processes of it, everything that we can find that is of interest to us and our mindset, we lean into that and we pay more attention to it. And that's the big thing about neural creative programming, because it's those things that we pay attention to that become raw materials or ingredients into our ideas. Again, nothing comes from nothing. You have to have the ingredients that you've taken note of, the process, to be able to pull them into anything that you're going to create in the future. And so using that technique of filtering less, I call it 3 types of steps or processes that we walk through. The first one is active observance, where the person is moving through a space and they're actively observing everything around them, paying more attention to the things that we would normally generalize our way through. The second one is what I call experimental curiosity. Now, Rudyard Kipling had a story, or had a poem that he called I keep 7 or 6 honest servants, where it's those servants are those questions that we ask, the what's, I wonder why's, the how comes, the where or what ifs, and all these different types of questions that we will ask ourselves in our most creative moment, our most inquisitive moment. Those are those things that we're running around in our head, all these different observations that we've had, because we're trying to figure out how do we categorize it in our mind as far as what it does before we can satisfy that need or that curiosity and move on to the next point. That's the second one. The third one I call connective assemblance, and that's where we get into a situation where we have to minimize a pain or problem or maximize an opportunity. And so for those first Neolithic people in creating the first metal, it was a need possibly to maximize an opportunity. Hey, if I can do this and I can make this rock, these two, into something different, then maybe I can make sharper tools or sharper devices or weapons. And therefore there was an opportunity that they saw with respect to changing this metal into something new, and that was the catalyst for them to be able to create. Because again, it has to be done around minimizing a pain or a challenge or maximizing an opportunity. And once you put all those different 3 pieces together, then that's when we can create new ideas. That's when we can create ideas that have never been seen before. Just as They created bronze in the Bronze Age period, which led to civilization rise and then moving on to iron. But they already had an idea when it came to the creation of bronze. That was the first. We go through these points where we have nothing, and then we have from nothing we have something, and then the next moment we have something similar.